Hey everybody, Tim here with today's review of James Bond movie number 23, Skyfall, the 50th anniversary of James Bond. Coincidentally enough, my favorite James Bond movie. I absolutely love this movie. Super excited to do this review for you. You have no idea. I love this movie. Not even as a James Bond fan. This is one of my favorite movies. I really, really liked it. So, if you guys watched my first James Bond reviews, whether it be Casino Royale or Dr. No, I don't remember which, I kind of told this story, so I'm going to do a quick version of it. So growing up, I never liked James Bond. I could never get into it. I just never really appreciated the lore of the character. So I was also that guy where I would just buy movies just to have movies. I prided myself on my collection, where I had roughly 5,000 DVDs. I actually had the fixture of a Hollywood Video in my bedroom, where it was all of the different shelves. I remember one of the examples I have, my husband and I were shopping when we first met and got together, and I was picking movies and I was putting them in my basket and stuff. I was like, oh, this movie's terrible, and I put it in my basket, and he's like, why are you buying it? And I was like, well, I have the other 5, so I have to have this one. And he's like, you're an idiot right now, just so you know. And I was like, oh, who cares, whatever, it completes the collection, I have to have it. So for Skyfall, my first introduction to James Bond, somebody on Craigslist was selling the complete collection, which at the time was Dr. No to Casino Royale. And he was only selling it for $30. And I was like, I don't like James Bond. I haven't seen all the James Bond. But you know what? $30 is a good deal. So I bought the whole collection. And then at the time, Quantum of Solace had just come out. So I bought that one too, put it with the collection, and I slowly binged my way through the series. And I was like, this is amazing. This is so much better than I thought it would be. And I really, really enjoyed it. So I finished Casino Royale. I finished Quantum of Solace. I met my husband. We got together in 2011. And then Skyfall came out in 2012. By some miracle, I still, to this day, do not fully understand how I never saw a trailer for Skyfall. I had heard about it, and I knew Daniel Craig was in it, and it was his third Bond movie. But I never saw a trailer on TV. I never saw a trailer in other movies, going to the theater and stuff. I just never saw a trailer. So I had no idea what it was about. And I was I kind of knew about it. So I was, of course, going to see it, but didn't know anything about it. And sure enough, I enter a lot of online contests and stuff like that. And I actually won 2 tickets to an advanced screening, which was not as cool as it sounded like. It was only 3 days before. But I was like, hey, Jordan, let's go see this advanced screening. He doesn't care about movies, but he was like, okay, let's go. So we went, we saw it. This is, I think, the second time in my entire life I saw a movie in theaters that I had never seen a trailer for, and I knew nothing about the plot. I was just going in completely blind. I absolutely loved it. I absolutely fell in love with this movie. I thought it was great. Beginning to end, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. That being said, even my husband, who does not care about James Bond or kind of movies in general, left the theater going that was actually a pretty good movie. That was enjoyable. So it was great. I'm actually going to do this review like I do my other reviews from top to bottom, but I just want to say how much I absolutely loved this movie for the 50th anniversary and everything. It really made an impact on me and how much I enjoyed it. That being said, Casino Royale was really good. Quantum of Solace, it was okay. Skyfall, my favorite. Spectre, it was okay. The next movie, which just got the title, No Time to Die, if it follows this pattern, it's going to be mind-blowingly good. I'm so excited for it. You guys have no idea. So all of that aside, I'm going to start from the beginning, kind of work my way down because I'm so excited. And I have 2 pages of notes. I'm sorry. This will probably be the longest Bond review out of all of them. Casino Royale, I think, is my limit right now. But I'm super excited to talk about all of the different elements in this. Now, from the very beginning, the chase is great. The car chase, and we get the new partner. I'm not going to lie. I had no idea who his new partner was going to be. I kind of, like, in the back of my mind, I knew it was going to be important because Bond's, like, the Bond woman of the movie is always going to be important, and it's always going to be based off of, like, her character's name, like, whether it be, like, Pussy Galore or something. Whereas in this case, his partner is never given a name, so you can kind of tell it's going to be important. I did not guess who it was going to be, like, at all. Like, it was a complete surprise at the end, probably because I didn't want to know who it was going to be, but still, it was a great twist that I'll save to the end. So the car chase was amazing. It wasn't to the greatness that Casino Royale is, with the chase through the scaffolding and everything, but it was a great car chase, and then it turns into a motorcycle chase, and then it's the train chase. Like, it's a really well done opening sequence, and I loved the scene where the cat basically, like, where the train starts separating, and he uses the machinery to, like, grab on to the other train just in time to, like, run across. Like, it's a really well done technique, and it's a really well done filming style just in general. Finally, when it comes to the scene where the unknown female agent is like, I have a shot, do I take it, do I not take it? And Emma's like, take the bloody shot. And she does, and she shoots Bond. Like, I remember the entire audience in the theater making an audible gasp, because when he's hit and he falls, it's so well done. Like, it's such a good scene. Ralph Fiennes makes his appearance 3 months later. Ralph Fiennes is one of those characters where I love him and I hate him at the same time. Like, going back to, like, something like Red Dragon, he's such a good actor. So I'm sure I'm going to piss off a lot of people right now, and I'm sorry. I did not like Ralph Fiennes' portrayal as Voldemort. Like, I couldn't get into it. Reading the books and everything like that, watching Ralph Fiennes, the whole Voldemort character just didn't hold its own for me. I just didn't like the way he was portrayed. Nothing against Ralph Fiennes, but I couldn't get into it. So anyways, 3 months down the road, which is a pretty significant amount of time, not quite to the, like, Pierce Brosnan, where he, like, grew the beard and everything, amount of torture time, but still, 3 months is pretty significant. And Ralph Fiennes plays Mallory. I admit, I should have guessed, oh, his name's Mallory, he's going to be M. Didn't get it, didn't think about it. My love for Judi Dench completely ignored everything about it because she's such a good actress, and I, like, for whatever reason, I just believed that she would always be M forever. I didn't guess that Ralph Fiennes would take over the role, and coincidentally, everybody that has played M, whether their first name or their last name, has always had M in their name. So I was like, whatever. But that scene where he tells her that they're planning her retirement because she has fucked up so much, and her like, no, I'm not going to do it, was such a great scene where she's just like completely taken aback by the fact that he's like, I'm sorry, but your whole secret spy organization is not what it is. Like, this isn't the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or even the 90s anymore. This isn't even in the 2000s. Like, we have moved on from this, and you're old school. Like, her reaction was amazing, and she's just so surprised by it. So we finally see Bond, and when MI6 is actually blown up, not the first time we've seen that, mind you, but it's a really, like, taken aback scene. Like, oh, this is a thing now, that MI6 has been blown up. Finding Bond alive was, I mean, it's not a surprise, but that scene is so well done, where he's drinking, and he actually has the scorpion on his hand. Like, no, I would have died. Like, the scorpion would have stung me and it would have just been the end. But it's such a great technique watching the scorpion do it. You know it's CGI and everything, but it still is really good. Him breaking into M's house is a great kind of shout out to Casino Royale, where she's like, don't ever do this again. Oh, 2 movies later, guess what, bitch? He did it again. So that was kind of great. Him doing the tests where you can clearly tell that he's failing but he's still like giving it his like good old college effort. Is fantastic. I love the word association scene where they're doing like the Rorschach test and they're like, what do you think about like this word? And he reacts and they're like, M, bitch, Skyfall, done. And that's the first like that we've heard of the movie title in the movie, because that's not the name of any sort of Ian Fleming like novel, so nobody actually knows what Skyfall is at this point. So it's kind of really interested. Where she actually lies to him and says like, oh, you passed by the skin of your teeth. Any of us as the viewers can clearly tell he did not pass. So, but it's interesting when they reveal that to him. The whole scene where he actually goes after the man who got away from the first part of the movie, it's a great sequence. It's a great segue to continue the plot. That character's name, like the character was so minor, I didn't even write down his name because who cares? When we finally meet Q is amazing because he's played by Ben Whishaw, who is absolutely adorable. Like he's the greatest actor ever. To like take over for Q, I was super excited. Llewellyn was still relatively young if you go back to those first Bond movies, but he was still older than Bond. Whereas Ben Whishaw he's just a baby. Like he's so young. And I remember when this movie came out and people just outcry, like, he's too young, he's just a nerd, like, what is this? And they just dismissed it right away. And, you know, it's like, that's actually kind of fitting with the technique. And even Ben's talking, and Q is talking in the scene where it's like, I can do more damage in my pajamas than you can, like, in a whole year of field duty. It's absolutely great. Like, I was super happy to see Ben Whishaw take over the character of Q. And even his line where it's like, oh, what were you expecting? An exploding pen? We don't really do that anymore. Like, it was so good. And I was really happy to see his character. I did love the scene of Bond holding on to the bottom of the umbrella the bottom of the elevator was such a great scene, and it was really, really well done. And then sure enough, when he dropped the assassin over the building, it was great. Like the whole thing, it was a little drawn out, but it was really, really well done. Same for the first 5 names that were leaked on YouTube and stuff. And it's like, oh, hey, my channel's on YouTube. Was still really, really well done. Let's see. The agent, the unknown agent from the beginning showing up, and she's like, oh, well, Q's afraid of flying. Once again, we haven't gotten her name, so it's like, okay, who is she? Still, had no idea. I would never have guessed in a million years who she would end up being. But her shaving technique, I will say this to the day I die, they did not sleep together. Because that's the whole point of her character and Bond never getting together. They always have that like connection, but like disassociation at the same time. I love the whole casino scene where, like I said, this movie's very reminiscent of Casino Royale. And then the whole Komodo dragon fight sequence was terrific. It was really well done. Even though it was CGI and it was clearly fake animals, it was really well done. And then M basically getting a subpoena, like, oh, now you have to come talk to us, was great. Like, it was really great to kind of see her be put into that situation. Like, oh, now we're going to question your old school tactics and see how well you actually deserve being in this position. The evacuated island was great, where this is not the first time we've seen a Bond villain and like him owning his own island. It's been done over and over again. It's so much of a cliche that Dr. Evil had his own volcanic layer and stuff like that. But the fact that they go out of their way to say, like, he wanted an island. So he was like, let's make a chemical leak, and pushed a button, and everybody dropped what they were doing and ran away. And he got his own island is amazing. Like, it's so well done. And finally, we meet the giant villain of this movie. It's like over an hour into this movie at this point. And Javier Bardem, I think is how you say his name. I'm sorry. You guys, if you guys have watched my reviews, I suck at names. And I apologize. I can only do so much. Terrific actor. Like, such a good actor. I remember the first thing I ever saw him in was, I think it was Before the Sunrise, the one with Johnny Depp in it. And he's a great actor. And then like No Country for Old Men, stuff like that. And when he first walks in, I was like, oh, this guy's terrible. Just like the way he talks and everything. But as he continues, it really grows on me. And he's such a good actor where he's telling the rat story. He's like, and he just, all of his little mannerisms are so great. And he plays the character of Silva. And he tells the rat story, and it's terrific. He mentioned how he was like M's favorite from like 1986 to 1997, which would have kind of been in that like the end of Timothy Dalton into Pierce Brosnan era. So it's like, okay, I get you. And when he's just reading through the file, and he's like, has M ever lied to you? No, never. Wrong. Like, it's like, oh shit, okay, what's going on? And he's like, what'd you score in your test? 70. Wrong. Like, you got a 40. You failed. Mommy was very bad. And like, evidently people have actually gone out and been like, oh, he's M's son. No, like at no point in this movie did I think that or did I believe that. He clearly like views her as a parental figure, which makes sense. I'm 100% behind that. But the fact that he keeps calling her mommy is amazing, because I don't ever believe they're connected at any sort of relationship value. But the fact that he refers to her as that is great. Also the scene, so granted, this is the 21st century, you have to make everything politically correct. They've talked about changing Bond's skin tone, they've talked about making Bond a woman, all sorts of stuff. And that scene when Silva is like kind of undressing Bond, and he's like, I bet you're questioning what your training has said about this for your first time. And Bond's like, what makes you think this is my first time? And Silva's just like, oh my God, like Bond, what? Like, it throws him for a loop. And this is kind of the first, like, hint at a bisexual, homosexual type relationship with Bond. And I mean, truth be told, if he is, like, the world's greatest secret agent, at some point he was probably put in that position. So it does make sense that he would have had to have done something. Not even questioning his sexuality, just the fact that he would have been in that type of a situation. And it's amazing to finally kind of get that sort of representation in a Bond movie. I really enjoyed it. I really, really liked that whole sequence. I like the whole shot glass on the head thing where Bond's like, he misses, because I mean he did get like a 40% on his test, but Silva's just like, oh, my turn, boom, and just shoots her dead. Like, oh fuck, I missed, my bad. Like, it was a really kind of showing how like just dead inside this character is. Where his final scene where he's captured and talking to M is some of the most heartbreaking scenes ever. Where, so if you go back to, what is it, like Die Another Day, or whatever the Pierce Brosnan in, where he's tortured for like 17 months, and when he first sees M, it's Pierce Brosnan, and she's like, why didn't you use your cyanide capsule? And he's like, I threw that away years ago. Like, you kind of get that heartless reaction from M, like, why didn't you use that? Whereas in this case, like, Silva actually says, like, I was tortured for 5 months. And when I finally realized you didn't care about me, I tried to kill myself with my back molar and my cyanide capsule. And do you have any idea what it did to me? Like, burning his esophagus. And then it shows him, like, pulling out his, like, front teeth, which end up being dentures. Which, I don't know, it worked and it didn't work. For me, like, at no point do I believe, like, suspension of disbelief. Like, dentures are not going to hold your entire face together. But when he pulls them out and, like, his eye sinks and his cheeks sink in and his teeth are all rotted, and he's like, I tried to kill myself for you, and even then I couldn't die, and you didn't care. And it's a heartbreaking scene. It actually makes him a little bit of a sympathetic villain. And he's like, say my real name. And she's like, no, your real name is going to be stricken off the wall of fallen soldiers, and you will be forgotten. It's a really hard scene to watch, as like this guy who just wanted to be appreciated has been ignored by M, and that's kind of his whole reaction. He's like, now he's that guy that's like, you know what? Fuck all of you, because you didn't care about me. Why should I care about you? It's a really hard scene. So from there, M actually does go to court, which is I don't know if it's supposed to be funny or what, but it was kind of great where like the prime minister is just chastising the hell out of M, and finally Mallory comes to the rescue. Like, for the sake of variety, can we hear from the prosecutor? And like even M is like, thank you, and it's kind of a great scene. The whole train crashing was intense, where it was some of the best graphics realistically, where the train just comes barging through the tunnel and it just blows up. Like, no wonder why this is one of the most expensive Bond movies there was. I do love where Bond finally kidnaps M, and we see the Aston Martin. One of my favorite lines, even I use it when like my husband and I are driving around, and like he like flips open the shifter, and she's like, "Oh, fine, eject me. See who cares." I was like, that's pretty terrific. And like the whole movie makes this giant twist where it's this big long intro, which is why this is one of my favorite movies, and I could talk about this movie forever. And I'm sorry this video is going on for so long because of that. Because it makes this giant twist like every so often where it's Bond doing a chase scene. Oh no, it's Bond with his like secret agent. Oh no, now it's Bond with Silva. Now it's Bond with a kidnapped M. And she talks about him being an orphan and how they go to Skyfall, and it's actually the house he grew up with. Because if you're rich enough, your house actually has a name. And Albert Finney makes his appearance. And I remember, once again, being in the theater, watching this movie, and like they introduce him, and you can hear his accent, and like he's shown from like the chest down. And finally, they're like, "Hello, Kincaid." And Kincaid is actually like kind of the butler of the household. Albert Finney is a terrific actor. Even if you go back to like Annie and he plays like Daddy Warbucks and stuff like that, Albert Finney is great. And you can clearly tell 100% watching this movie that role was written for Sean Connery. Like, they're in Scotland, he has a Scottish accent, and I've read some reviews over the years how the director, like, they briefly wanted to offer the part to Sean Connery, but they were like, no, if Sean Connery, like, reprised, like, was in this role as Kincaid, it would take everybody out of the movie, and they would be like, oh no, that's Bond, and they'd be confused. Realistically, like, even though it's Albert Finney, he's so like the embodiment of Sean Connery at that point, with his accent, with his character development, with his mannerisms and stuff. It took me out of the movie even more because I was like, oh, you guys wanted Sean Connery, but he wouldn't do it. Rather than if you had just had Sean Connery there, like bald, overweight, whatever, it would have made more sense just to have Sean Connery there than to have a different actor pretending to be Sean Connery. I mean, that's just kind of my point of view. But still, Kincaid is a great actor. And like the whole, like I said, the whole movie takes this big twist where it basically becomes Home Alone, where M is like tying bombs to the light bulbs and they're putting like gun shells under the floorboards and all sorts of stuff. It was great. And even M, one of my favorite parts of this movie is it's the first instance somebody has ever audibly said the word fuck in a movie. In one of the Timothy Dalton movies, he kind of says it in the background, but there's so much noise that you can't actually hear him. And M is the first character to say, I fucked this up, didn't I? And it's great because it's especially the fact that it's her and not Bond or some other character, but it's just this little old lady just like, I fuck things up. Like, it's fantastic, and I really enjoyed it. Kincaid also has the line, like, where Bond says, are you ready? And Kincaid says, I was ready before you were born. Once again, like, this is fucking Sean Connery. Like, why didn't you have him? Daniel Craig is the first Bond actor that was born after the Bond franchise started. So if it had been Sean Connery, it would have just made that line that like I was ready before you were born would have made that much more sense. It would have been great. This is where things just start flying, where like him falling through the ice was great. M is actually shot and she's injured, and when Silva like just wants her to shoot them both with the same bullet through the head, it's again, it goes back to that whole like mother-son thing, and it's so sad. And then Bond has the line of like, well, I'm the last rat standing, and then kills Silva with the knife. It's such a good ending. It's such a good filming style and editing. I did like M's will, where we get to see the dog again, and the big twist where he's like, he once again meets that undercover agent, and she's like, oh, you know what? They offered me and I declined, so I'm just gonna kind of be an assistant for now, like a secretary. And he's like, well, we haven't been formally introduced. Like, what's your name? And she's like, Eve. Realistically, if she had introduced her name as Eve from the very beginning, would have been just fine. Where she's like, my name's Eve Moneypenny. I was like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. Like, you are perfect. And I'm totally okay with her being Miss Moneypenny. Like, I mean, it's not Lois Maxwell, but she's so good and she's so perfect. Even after Daniel Craig retires, I hope she continues this role for years to come because she's so good. And then that's kind of the big twist ending. And after that, boom, we're done. And we meet Ralph Fiennes as the new M. So we get a new Q, we get a new Miss Moneypenny, we get a new M, all in the same movie. And it's amazing. It's such a well done scene. In the past, anytime actors have changed, with the exception of Q, where we got like Llewellyn and John Cleese as Q and R, like characters never met. This is the first time we've actually seen two M's together. And actually, this is the first time we've actually seen M fire a gun. And both, like, Judi Dench and Ralph Fiennes both fire guns in this movie. So this is the first time we've ever seen M, like, take an aggressive stance. So that's amazing. And we get a new Q and a new Miss Moneypenny. Like, this movie's just so good. It's so well done. And even, like, if you're not a James Bond fan, I seriously recommend this movie because it's such an interesting movie from beginning to end. Like I said, I could talk about this movie forever. So for those who have seen this one, what did you guys think? Is this a favorite of yours? Is this like not? What did you think about all of the new M, the new Q, the new Miss Moneypenny? What did you think about all of the actors? What did you think about seeing like Bond's like where he grew up and learning a little bit more about his heritage? What did you think about Albert Finney? And like, did you like Albert Finney, or would you have rather seen Sean Connery? Personally, I still would rather have seen Sean Connery, just because knowing that that's who they had in mind took me out of the movie more than actually seeing him. So thank you guys for everything. I know this is my longest Bond video yet, but I just love this one so much. I could talk about it forever. So thank you guys, and I will see you guys next time for Spectre.